All right, let's talk about the big one. Mitchell Moses at 7. I feel so bad for Nicho Hynes. I am such a fan of Nicho, and I'm such a fan of his progression and how far he's taken the Sharks. And I'm a man that would have had him at 7 before the weekend. A lot of people will go, well, hang on, he's been playing such good footy for 16 or 18 months. Why would you just judge one game? But unfortunately, when you look at it like, okay, Freddie has one game. So everyone knew that people were playing for positions on the weekend. Everyone knew that Moses was playing for it, Hynes was playing for it, Reynolds was playing for it. Now, I don't think Nicho Hynes needs to go out and set the world alight. He could have just got beaten by a better Storm side. But I think that what made it hard, I think, for Freddie to pick Hynes was he didn't just not be solid. Like, he had a pretty poor game, probably one of his poorest games, unfortunately. As I said, I love Nicho, but probably one of his worst games. And so the question has to be asked, and it's harsh, it's brutal, but that's what Origin is. It's ruthless, is if he struggles in this game where going for the jersey, how is he going to go up at Suncorp? Now, he might have turned around and bounced back and killed it, but how can you make that call as Freddie? Whereas, you know, people will say, well, Mitch Moses played the Bulldogs. For sure, the Bulldogs are nowhere near Storm's level. I understand that. But I don't think it's a matter of how they dominated the opposition. I just think it's because Hynes made quite a few errors and played poorly that probably cost him his spot.
Yeah, a few things that stood out there. Probably the first one, Matty saying, if you saw this side a week ago, it would have surprised you from the weekend result. Not so much, and I completely agree with that. What probably surprised me most with the Mitch Moses selection and the chat around that, it was that I had under pretty good authority that Mitchie was the front runner for the halfback spot leading into the weekend.
That is strange to me.
Yeah, so when you come out of it and you saw Nicho had an ordinary game down in Melbourne and then Mitchie Moses against the Doggies on Monday, with all this pressure on him to come perform, playing for New South Wales Blues 7 spot, he delivered. And okay, I understand it why he's there. But, yeah, I believe that Moses was leading into the weekend, whereas I'm with you, mate. I was certainly leading into the weekend. Nicho would have been my number 7. Now, the weekend's played out as it was. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe Freddie was going in completely open-minded, split between all the candidates. But now I understand Moses. I nearly would have backed Nicho. I wonder in terms of that 7 spot, I mean, Freddie needs to win, doesn't he?
Yeah. It's like just one game. That's a problem. I think if you're going into like game 1 of the series and Nicho had a poor game heading into it, you go, look, one game, but it's like coming off, you know, a really poor game from Nicho into a Suncorp decider. That's
because I think even, I don't get too far ahead of ourselves, but if the Blues do lose this game and game 3 becomes a dead rubber, Nicho comes straight in, and I think he has to, because it's a dead rubber. You may as well give the bloke a crack.
Yeah.
Starting number 7. I'm with you. I feel so sorry for Nicho that he came on at a position he's never really played before in game 1, 10 minutes, and I understand him not being on the bench. I think that was a mistake in the first place, that he was used as our utility when he probably covers fullback in the halves. So if he's not going to be 7, I'm happy not to be in the 17 based on the squad that's been picked. But, yeah, you can't help feel sorry for him.
Yeah, oh, mate, it's just one of those situations where we have to remember Nicho is still early in his development. And I just think that after the game on the weekend, it showed that, you know, he's human and there's still a ways to go in his development. We have to remember this is his 2nd year as a 7. Second season. So he's not even all the way through. He spent a year and a half as a 7 at NRL level. And so I think, you know, there's some things that he can learn.
And the reality is with Nicho, as big a fan as we all are of him, we think there's probably a spot in the Blues team long term for him. Sharky's record against top 8 sides this season and last season, not terrific. Lost the 2 finals games last year. This isn't to say he's not a pressure player, but I'm putting out the facts that are in front of us. Yeah. There was a big game for him on the weekend. Granted, the Sharks got battered from pillar to post. He didn't have a lot of opportunity to do much in this game, but it was another pressure game and he didn't stand up for it, unfortunately. Mitchie Moses did in a massive game, and he had 2 cracking try-assist line breaks within the first 20 minutes. And he's put his hand up, hasn't he?
And I think with Hynes, if he had just been solid and got beaten by the Storm, I think I personally would have selected him still, because I would have been like, solid, you know, Storm are a better side than the Sharks, probably anyway. That's arguable, but at home. But I think it's just a fact that he did have quite a few errors that are uncharacteristic of Hynes. And it wasn't, usually if Hynes makes those couple errors, he finds a way back into the game. And I just don't know if he did yesterday. So, yeah, I kind of feel like it was, I personally would have probably gone Reynolds or Moses, even though last week I was Hynes. But as I said, heading into a decider, coming off that game, that's a risky proposition.
What I do think with Moses, and it's a credit to him, is that it's so funny because it's so polarising views of how the Blues have selected their team and how the Maroons have probably selected theirs. In that Origin historically is one on defence and just having this rock-solid defensive 17. You can win a game with a try or two tries. We've seen it time and time again. And Mitchy Moses' defence in the last 18 months to 2 seasons, it's been really good. Like, he had his defensive lapses and deficiencies earlier on in his career, but I think it's been really good, aggressive. His contact's been fantastic. Nicho, still some question marks around his defence in the front line, and we've seen that with Cronulla. So in terms of that, Mitchy's probably a more solid 7. I mean, there's plenty of attacking upside in Mitchy Moses, but like, I wonder with Billy Slater, who just goes this all-out attacking approach of Reece Walsh, Jarome and I, who we'll get to shortly, who comes in ahead of the defensive-minded, rock-solid Felice Corfusi, overlooked him. Like, with Billy's approach to all-out attack, would he have gone with a Nicho Hynes?
Ooh, that's a tough question.
Really tough. But
that's
the approach
sure.
they've both taken, isn't it?
I just think that with Mitchell Moses, because Mitchell Moses has also struggled to step up in some big games. Grand final, he was relatively quiet. Getting into the grand final, he actually had a pretty poor game and was more Brown and the boys that picked up the win, Cowboys. But he did play solidly in his Origin chance that he got, even though it was a dead rubber. So as I said, I love Nicho Hynes. I love the story of Nicho Hynes. But just even like Cleary, if you go back and look at the start of Cleary's career, he took a few years to get going. And so I think that even heading into game 1, if Cleary was injured, I would have put him at 7, even if he did have a poor game. But it's just the fact that you're heading up to Suncorp for a one-off, coming off that performance, like his confidence would be rattled. I mean, I'd assume it'd be rattled right now. He wouldn't be human if it was.
I reckon.
Matt, what do you reckon?
Just with the Moses thing, if you take away everything that Hynes was their last game, whatever, if you have them all at face value, and this is just my opinion, I reckon Moses, he doesn't stand out in any attribute, but he's in the top 2 for either. So for example, kicking game, Reynolds is probably the best kicker, but Moses is second. Running game,
well, Cleary, I'd say.
Oh no, I'm
Cleary.
I'm talking about the 3 available. So Hynes, Reynolds, and Moses. Then you got running game, him and Hynes. You got ball playing, he's up there. Defense, they're all pretty good. Goal kicking, Reynolds and thing. Age, obviously Reynolds is a bit older, so fresh. Then you got experience. He's in the middle there as well. So he's kind of I'd say he's the most well-rounded right now out of all of them. So I guess that definitely worked in his favour too.
And I think with Reno, even though he scored the match winner, he did struggle a little bit in the first half. And so I wonder, it's hard. It depends how close Cody Walker was to getting selected. Because if Cody Walker gets selected, I think it's a no-brainer that you go Reynolds. I think you'd be insane to go Reynolds Luai when you've got Reynolds Cody Walker there. So I think that's probably what got Moses across the line. Would have I gone Moses over Reynolds? I'm really unsure. I'm just unsure. What have you gone, Reynolds or Moses?
I would have gone Moses. Sort of look at, he's 32 years old now, Adam Reynolds. I mean, by no means old. He turns 33 next month, so there's so many different factors in this because you're adding in Luai at 5'8". You've got Nathan Cleary's return next season, game 1 next year, realistically. You have to give a bloke an opportunity to win this spot. The fact that Mitchy Moses is, I think, in the prime of his career, there are some good years left in him. If he does come in and takes us to a series win or a game 2 win and then holds his own in game 3, whatever, there's no reason why he can't be here longer term. Adam Reynolds, are you sort of picking for this series and maybe next year, when Cleary does come back, you're not really going to go Reynolds and Cleary, so it's a really short-term fix by going him. I agree that if Cody Walker was fit and good to go, that he would have complemented Cody perfectly, so I would have understood that. But the fact that Cody wasn't there and wasn't selected, I liked the Moses pick over Adam Reynolds.
Okay, we'll ask the question. Who would have you gone out of all three of them? They've gone Moses, but who would have you gone?
By a narrow margin, after the weekend's games, Mitch Moses.
It does depend on the six, but if they're going to stick with Luai, I probably just would have gone Moses as well, just for the reasons I said before, most well-rounded. The one thing that isn't in his favour is that the Broncos are killing it this year, and Reynolds has been in the middle of that. And I know the Sharks are fifth and the Eels are ninth, but I'd argue they've both been disappointing years so far for both teams. So it's really hard, and I don't want to sit on the fence, but I probably, if I had to answer, I'll go just Moses for what I said before. But yeah, it's tough that the Eels have had not the greatest year so far.
Yeah, before the weekend, I was locked into Hynes. I thought game one, if Cleary was injured, Hynes would have been there. And also, he knows the systems, he's trained together. I know Moses as well, but he was part of the squad. But as I said, I just think, unfortunately, he just struggled and had such a poor game. And Moses was so good, like so good. And this is coming from a guy that probably didn't even have Moses in the conversation last week. Like, it was either Reynolds or Hynes for me. I was looking at Moses more like individually has had a good season, but like the Eels have obviously struggled. But after the weekend, I just would have gone Moses. So yeah, but I will say, if they go up there and lose, you put Hynes in straight away for game three, in my opinion.
Agreed, yep.
You put him in, doesn't matter what happens.
It's a free swing.
Yeah, get him in there, give him an opportunity at 7. Will Cleary be back by then? No. So get him in there.
Most likely not.
Yeah.
What is interesting is that, like, he's got the sort of 6-week time frame, which drops nearly bang on game 3. Imagine if Cleary did come back and plays. He's doing all this weird shit, isn't he, to get himself good to go again? Yeah. Is it like some injections of some sort of
Bloke beer or something?
Yeah, Bloke beer straight in the veins. He'll play next week.
Allegedly, that's what they're saying.
Imagine if they do get the win. Cleary comes out, plays the week before, like round 18 for Penrith, kills it, and just like, anyway.
Yeah, it'd be a nightmare.
Because the time frame is time's bang on.
Yeah, for sure. I just think if they lose game 2, you've got to find a way to get Hynes in there. Even if, let's say they lose game 2 and Luai struggles, I'd even go as far to say is Luai drops out, Hynes goes in at 6, Cleary at 7.
Yep.
I just think Hynes needs a shot, just not at Suncorp game 2 after the weekend. If he come out and was just solid, but if Mitchell Moses comes out and kills it, that's great for New South Wales. Like, finally, you've got 2 7s that are genuine Origin level 7s.
I think long term, personally, my ideal New South Wales halves, and I'm looking 5 years into the future, is Cleary at 7, playing in the middle, directing everything, and then Nicho Hynes at 6, going side to side. That's my ideal 6 and 7.
I think, look, the thing is though that like Luai, under all of this pressure, all of this negative chat, has been outstanding. Outstanding. And so at the moment, you have to give Luai his props. He is held off the competition by good rugby league. So everyone can talk and chat and rah-rah, but he's held off the competition through his actions.
And I'll tell you what, he was good against the Roosters with no Cleary.
They tear them up.
Jarome, every time we want to try and question Jarome Luai or being Cleary line, he just steps up. He wins. He's rock solid in D. We know he's got an attack. I thought he was really good in game 1. So coming into the series, and I was one person who, game 1, I probably would have gone, I think I had Cleary and maybe Nicho at 6. And now I'm like, you know what? Like, why not Luai?
Yeah.
He doesn't put a foot wrong.
He doesn't. And we talk about like pressure and stepping up for jerseys. He's stepped up. The difference is he's a polarising character that isn't beloved by, other fans outside of Penrith. But he has stepped up. He stepped up in the World Cup. He stepped up in 2021. Go back and watch that debut. It was that was his debut. The record margin win in that game 1 was Luai's debut. Go look at the tries. Who was involved in them?
Imagine if... And look, I love Jarome Luai as a bloke. I love what he brings to the game as a footballer. If he, though, as I said, he's a bit polarising, but Nicho Hynes, beloved by all. Like, if Nicho had Luai's resume, it'd be like, there wouldn't even be a question.
It wouldn't be a question.
Like, he's in there, boom, everything.
Oh, 100%. Like, if Luai was as loved as Hynes, there'd be riots in the street of if he was getting considered to be dropped. Kind of thing.
Luai hasn't done this for half a season. He's done it for like 3-4 years now.
Yeah. So, and I think like this series, obviously he has to come out game 2 and play well. He's doesn't have a mortgage on the jersey, but so far, outside of last year where all of the Blues struggled, he's stepped up in the big moments. He stepped up in grand finals. He stepped up in final series. He stepped up for Samoa. He stepped up. And it probably stings people to hear that because he is polarising. But at the end of the day, what would you rather? A dude that is stepping up or a dude that, so...
I know he's polarising. And when you're in the opposition, it pisses you off. And I get that. Like, we lost the grand final to him. I get that. But I loved in 2021, like the Origin series, when he's just chirping at the Queenslanders. Like, when you're on his side, you absolutely freaking love it. It's kind of like South with Cody Walker. Like, I know that a lot of people don't like Cody Walker because of his spats on the field stuff. And South fans adore Cody Walker. It's kind of the same thing. But when he plays for New South Wales and he's like chirping at Kafusi and maybe not the Cobo thing, but everything else, you absolutely love it.
Yeah, for sure. Now, last kind of talk about this, Nicho Hynes at 14. Now, I initially had Nicho Hynes at 14 for my game 1 squad, but it was if yous had a game plan. So bring him on at a certain period, put Luai at 9, even Cleary at 9 maybe. I know it sounds mental, but let's just hear me out. I didn't agree with the fact that there was essentially, he was just there for an injury. I just think with Origin, you need to use 17 blokes in a game plan. And so I actually think that they're doing him a favour by not putting him on the bench again. And also, it's a better game plan to have Reece Robson on the bench than it is to have, say, Nicho Hynes.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't think he was sort of the option at 14 in game 1, and I'm with you. I think they've done wonders by him to say, go back. The Sharkies play this week in round 16, so he's available there. And I don't think there was room for him on the bench, which sounds interesting, like a bit weird because he is pretty versatile, but not versatile in the positions that we need him. And to be honest, I probably would have had Matt Burton on the bench because he is so versatile. I do look at that team now and go, like, the way the modern game is with HIAs, all these head knocks, all these injuries, all sorts of things. We've got Latrell Mitchell who's under a big injury cloud. Tom Trbojevic, who's always under an injury cloud. Josh Addo-Carr, he came back from injury a few weeks ago. One player goes down. We're pretty light on for backline player. And I don't love, at any level of footy, a bench without a genuine backline coverage. And we saw in game 1 that, and I was all of 11 minutes, but Nicho had to come on and cover a position that he hadn't played before. And he was a backline player. And it didn't cost us the game single-handedly by any means, but he wasn't the right fit to come on at centre. I would love Matty Burton on the bench there. Yeah.
And we spoke about this on Packer Up Boys, the only reason why I wouldn't have Burton on the bench is I just think that in Origin, you probably need to give your hooker a rest for 10 minutes or at least move him around a little bit. And I think that with Reece Robson there, you can get him on the field with a game plan. Cookie gets a little bit of a rest. Also, one thing, and we kind of nutted it out on the show, is that the good thing about Burton on the bench is your halves are covered and your centres are covered. So he is there if there is an injury. He's probably a better option than Reece Robson. But I will say, with Reece Robson in the side, you get a game plan that you can use 17 players, but also the unknown factor or someone that can cover the halves is Latrell Mitchell. He can actually play 6. And so that's where you go, okay, maybe we don't go with Burton on the bench because Trell Mitt can play, unless obviously it's Latrell that gets injured, then you're sitting there going, we don't have a centre to cover the centre. But
Yeah. And I get that, but I think it's a stretch because, I said, sure, Trell Mitt, a bloke who I don't think, to my knowledge, has ever played 5'8", has to go into the halves. You then don't have centre coverage, so what, Cam Murray probably goes to centre, which we know he can do a job there, but again, far from ideal. I'm warming, and especially hearing to all these NRL legends say they love the 2 hooker rotation. I sit there and go, all right, well, something that I've been happy to see Damien Cook go on there and play 80. You got to stand up and listen to these blokes who've done a lot more in the game than I have. So I'm certainly warming to the 2 hooker rotation, and I wouldn't have minded it being sort of like a 1-2 punch of Appy and Cook if Appy was available. But surely Damien Cook, who is an 80-minute out-and-out player, if you want to give him a rest, put Cam Murray into hooker for 10 minutes. Give him his little breather. You got a breather at half-time, a 10-minute breather, midway through the second half, whatever it might be, and carry Matt Burton.
Where would you inject Matt Burton if there's no injuries?
He can come on and play as that link man as like a 13. I know, Isaiah Yeo does it, but like, what have Queensland done with Ben Hunt, Daly Cherry Evans, was it Cooper Cronk early in the days when they were the 14? They just came on and had them as another ball player through the middle, chime in wherever. I think they could have done it.
So you'd basically play him at 13. The only problem, I guess, is like Isaiah Yeo is already like that guy. So does that swing things out of proportion? Because whereas like Paddy Carrigan, for example, is more of a front rower 13.
Well, that's the other thing. Like Isaiah Yeo, we know he can go 80 easily. Like he literally played 80 in Origin 1 and then played 80 3 or 4 days later for the Panthers. But if you want to inject him and you want to kind of be that sort of link man through the middle, a fresh body, he can take a few hit-ups. Like he's a pretty big boy, Matty Burton. Could he come on for 15 minutes and give Isaiah Yeo a bit of a spell? And that's how you inject him as X-factor midway through that second half. And he's there to cover so many different positions. So I would have had Burton there on the bench.
What about you?
Yeah, I've been toing and froing about this pretty much since Friday. Like from day one, since game 1 finished up until last Friday, I was like, Matty Burton's got to be the 14. Matty Burton's got to be the 14. But then you think about how Queensland used all of their 17 to a specific game plan, as you said, and it does make sense to me that Reece Robson is on the bench. If we lose a centre, that's when we're in trouble. But it's a decider. I think Freddie got a lot of criticism, I think, 3 years ago when Teddy got injured and he didn't put Paps on the bench, which was pretty crazy. But he did also that was a four forward bench. It was Finucane, Junior Barlow, Nathan Brown, Isaiah. It's funny how the game's changed in 3 years. Like, that would never happen now.
But Matty, are we in trouble? You said if we lose a centre, if we lose a 1-7, anyone in our back line? I don't see how it's...
Well, Cam Murray could go to... I reckon Cam Murray could play centre and then you push a centre out to the wing.
He could. He could. But
I actually like
it's not
Cam
ideal.
Murray. I actually like Cam Murray more at centre than I do him servicing at hooker. I just don't know if he services at Origin level.
That was like if I wanted to carry Matt Burton on the bench, I fully understand that. All right, there needs to be some cover there for Damien Cook. So it'd be like a 10-minute play to give Cookie a breather to come back in the back end of the second half.
I just don't know if he has good enough service for Origin level. Like your attack is stunted for 10 minutes.
And it's far from ideal. However,
it does get
for the team that I want to pick, there has to be. Put it this way, I still think Damien Cook could go 80. But if there's a moment there where Freddie just goes, Cookie needs a bit of a spell, he's made 45 tackles in 55 minutes, if it had to happen. So ideally, I think, no, Cam Murray doesn't go to hook. I think Cook plays 80.
Yeah. And then so if you had Burton on the bench, though, Cam Murray, he comes on as a bit of a link man through the middle. Would you keep them off at the same... You know what I mean? Then Cam Murray may get less minutes if Burton comes on as a link man?
Not so much. Well, Cam Murray doesn't have to come on as a link man. We know that's a great role he plays for the Bunnies, but he can just come on as an out-and-out, ball-running middle forward.
A front row and just give...
And like if you've got Yeo and Murray at the same time, which they will be for a big portion of this game, I think it was about 50 minutes of game 2, Yeo can stay the link man. Murray just plays as middle forward. Quick play balls, plenty of runs.
See, I like Reece Robson selected. Not because I said he was a smoky at the start of this year, not at all.
But mainly that.
No, I like Reece Robson as well, is because he essentially has the same body shape as Cotter. And he can be Cotter for New South Wales, in my opinion. He's one of those guys that just goes out there, really physical, can play 9, obviously can definitely play 9, definitely could play lock, in my opinion. And also I reckon he could play in the middle if he had to, kind of like what Cotter does. Because I think size-wise, they're about the same. Like, I don't think they're that much difference in regards to weight. Like, Reece Robson is quite a stocky hooker. So I actually really like the Reece Robson one.
So here's one for you on Robson. And then I want a Birdo, but I don't have a knock on Robson as such. I think he'll come in there, could be one of them blokes that the game finishes, like Queensland, I say, built for Origin. He just gets it.
I reckon I'm pretty confident Robson will have a good impact on the game.
When you say that he could play 13, which I agree, I think he could come in and play some decent minutes, not decent minutes, but enough, as a 13, if not needed at 9, could you have gone Robson and Burton, and then you are covered everywhere? Or is his lack of experience as an out-and-out middle ball running forward Is that a concern?
Well, it'd be who you lose then, though, because then you have to have one big man on the bench.
Yeah.
You can't not have Martin. You can't not have Cam Murray.
Well, you start Liam Martin on an edge, and then either of Hudson or Frizzell drop out.
Yeah, I think that this setup is the right setup. Going into a game, we're selecting the guy just in case someone gets injured. I just don't know if that's, even though I know that's not your game plan. I think Reece Robson's the right call. I really think he's going to excel massively in Origin. I do agree, though, Burton not 18 is surprising.
Yeah,
that is bizarre to me. But let us know in the comment section. Would have you gone Matty Burton at 14? 17 or Reece Robson? I just think Reece Robson can turn into your Ruben Cotter. I do see that happening.
What I'm happy about is that, this is what the chat for the last 15 minutes has been. There's basically two options. Either recovering for injury or everyone gets there's a specific game plan for everyone. Obviously, there's pros and cons for both, blah, blah, blah. I just like how we had Hynes on the bench in game one. Didn't work. He didn't really have a plan for him. I like that Freddie's using the more positive approach to this one and pretty much not mimicking Queensland, but that's what Queensland did in game one. So I appreciate the positivity of the game plan, everyone having a specific role to play instead of injury. Even though if we do get injured, we could be fucked, but I don't know, it's a decider. So I like that we're going all in. Personally.
Yeah, I just think that in Origin you got to have 17 blokes in a game plan. It's that hectic of a cauldron now. The speed is that fast. And I know Cookie played 80 in 2021, but he's 2 years older. The game has just gotten so quick. Yes, it was quick in 2021, but he's towed us up. What if the game was close? Could have he gone 80 if he was defending for 40 minutes straight, or 20, 30 minutes straight? I'm not sure. I mean, maybe he could have. I mean, every game that he's played, essentially except for one, he did go 80. But yeah, I just like Reece Robson.
And as usual, we're nitpicking. We're there's nothing wrong with the 18, 19 man squad. We're just what we would do differently. But all in all, pretty happy with what's been picked.
Yeah.